Good morning. Good to see everybody this morning. I tell you, I hope y'all understand that the more that you brag on me and Johnny and mention it and thank us, the slower we're going to go. You know, and I do appreciate Laura raising her hand and Margaret too, because she's having to live with Johnny through this, and she's been down also. But how many flights of stairs did your exercise thing? 23 flights of stairs, her exercise thing told her that she climbed today, that I was up there redoing the wiring. And most of those, she actually needed to go down there and flip the breaker. Now, I don't know, maybe some of it was a little hateful, I don't know. But you know what it was? Some of them was we couldn't remember if it was on or off. And we just flipped it. But anyway, I appreciate you all being grateful for that, but I really wish that when you mention it, you'd put Johnny's 50 years, and he's forgot more than I appreciate all the help that's been volunteered and coming by and helping us. That means a lot to us. This morning's lesson is the lesson that I told you last week that I had been struggling with so much, but I think I got it narrowed down to where I want it, and I certainly hope that it is not confusing, that you can understand the point that I am trying to make as we look at the book of Jonah here. So if you would, go ahead and turn your books over to the book of Jonah, and we'll take off on this. I had Mason read the first chapter this morning to refresh our memories, but I had him read that because we're really not going to focus that much on the first chapter, on the fact of what happened in the first chapter. So as we look at this, I guess we might say that this is the ultimate children's story. I think every kid has heard the story of Jonah. And please forgive me if I ever replace Jonah with Noah. I seem to do that sometime, but we're talking about Jonah if I happen to say Noah. But Jonah seems to be the ultimate children's story. If you talk to any child and you say, what happened to Jonah? They will say he was swallowed by a whale, or he was swallowed by a big fish, which is true. Now, it may be that even as a kid, you were taught more than that only Jonah was swallowed by a big fish. You will have learned maybe the rest of the story, especially as you got a little older. But I would have to say that what sticks in our mind the most when we hear the word Jonah is he was swallowed by a big fish, But this morning, I want to go a little bit deeper than that and focus on a little bit bigger picture. As I discussed last week, or mentioned briefly, Jonah only has 4 chapters. 4 chapters, and they are really short chapters. I mean, how often do we have somebody like Mason, the reader, read an entire chapter? It has to be pretty short to do that. As a matter of fact, in my King James Version here, one opening has all 4 chapters and just a little bit at the top of the 3rd page. So it's a very, very short story that God gives us here in the book of Jonah. But I'm going to tell you what, it is amazing how much can be learned from the 4 chapters, the one book of Jonah. Now, having said that, this is the lesson that I wanted to prepare and what I see going on here with Jonah. Now, I would say that if I wanted to classify how you hold in your mind this lesson, you might say, I would say that I would call this a lesson that is food for thought. No pun intended that Jonah was the fish's food, but that this is a lesson that is food for thought. And the reason why I say that, we'll learn a little bit more, that even the ending of the book is what causes me to say that, because it has a comparable ending, that it is food for thought. So as we start to look at Jonah here, I want us to focus on, and I like to do this, to try to present, and I think this is what we should do, to try to present the Old Testament lessons and how we can relate to them today. It's awful interesting to find out how they affected people back then, but I think our ultimate goal is to figure out, well, how does this relate to me today? What can I learn from this that I can use today? So that's what we're going to do. What do we see today? If we turn on the news, if we get into someone's conversation, walk up on them, a lot of times what we hear is we hear about the things that are going on in the world today, don't we? We hear of all the protests that are going on. Protest after protest, people protesting this and protesting that, and they're protesting, and I think sometimes they don't know what they're protesting. I honestly think sometimes if they know what they're protesting, they don't know anything about it, but they're protesting. Jonah was a protester. Jonah was protesting. So we're going to learn a little bit how Jonah's protest affects us today. You see, today, I'm just going to say this about today. It seems to be, and it's very amazing to me, that there is two sides of every subject. You might call it political subjects, but it is so many involved in this that it is really just two different opinions of what's going on in the world today. There seems to be this side and there seems to be that side. That enough said about that. There is two sides going on. And there's two sides to every protest that we seem to be seeing and hearing about. And when we really look at these things, it seems to be that the problem is good and evil are the two oppositions. Should that surprise us? Shouldn't, should it? The Bible tells us that there's a war going on in this world, and it's between good and evil. It might be for us that are here and living, it might be between us and a friend, us and a family member, us and an acquaintance, or just us and people that we don't even know that we see on TV. But it's deeper than that. The war that is going on is between good and evil. And I would think that each side of that two sides that we seem to be talking about would agree with that. Now, which side is evil? Couldn't get that agreement going. But that it is a controversy, that it is a battle between good and evil. Well, both sides are obviously going to think that they're the good, right? Well, I'm the good side. And we see that play over and over and over today. Do you realize that's kind of what God and Jonah was having a problem with? Was this battle between good and evil. Jonah had one idea, and God had another. And we all know who was in charge. But we see these two sides today if we are going to relate this to ourselves. If there is a comment, here's the two sides. If there's a comment, we might say, that's made in the middle, this side over here takes that comment, and this side over here takes that comment, and they both twist it in their minds, unconsciously, we'll say, to fit their narrative, to be fuel for their fire. Okay, we understand that. That's what Jonah did. I'll keep saying that. That's what Jonah did because we all know this story. So each side, split down the middle, hears whatever it wants to hear and uses this or that comment, this or that fact, and makes it fit their side. Both sides guilty of doing that. And each side, I know each and every one of you here has felt this, will look at something that was said, see how the other side in your mind took it, and you think, how did they interpret that way? That was not what was being said. This was being said. We see it. I think everybody would have to agree with that if we were honest. Now, is it a coincidence that we see some of the same things going on today that was going on in Jonah's time? And I'm going to tell you, I did quite a bit of research on the things that were going on in Jonah's time. And I'm going to tell you, it was really quite shocking. So I will say this. Is it a coincidence, or is God, and listen to this closely, is it a coincidence, or is God trying to wake up Jonah again? Mason read about it. Jonah was asleep in the ship, and God had to wake him up. Is that what God is trying to do to us today? Is God saying, wake up, Jonah? Something's going on. In chapter 1, as Mason read, the Lord gives Jonah a job. Look at verses 1 and 2. I'll read them again. Now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness is come up before me. God obviously sees everything. He saw this wickedness in the Nineveh. He basically tapped Jonah on the shoulder, his prophet, and he said, go to Nineveh and tell them what I tell you to tell them. Jonah didn't want to. Jonah didn't want to. We find out some of the reasons why Jonah didn't want to. You see, Jonah flees. I don't want to go to Nineveh. I'm going to go to Tarshish. I'm going to go to Tarshish. Well, why did God want him to go to Nineveh? Why Nineveh in particular? What was their problem? Now, I'm sure we've studied the problems of Nineveh before, but I never have studied it as fully as I studied it for this lesson, the things that were going on in Nineveh. So what I did, I looked it up online, the things that were going on in Nineveh. It was pretty wild. Now, we've studied about wild things going on other times in the Bible and other places in the Bible, Rome, things like that. We've studied about evil rulers. But the problem they were having in Nineveh wasn't primarily with the individual citizens of Nineveh. It was with all leadership in Nineveh. And the influence that those leaders had on their people, causing them to sin. Now, when I looked this up and I asked AI, what were some of the things going on in Nineveh? To be honest with you, the things that it listed is not appropriate for me to mention specifically from this pulpit. This is not an adult class where all of our young ears are downstairs and we can talk about, some serious matters and to put it across to where you understand the evil that was going on. So what I asked AI to do, I said, well, can you tell me these same things, but clean it up where it can be mentioned maybe in front of an audience, where there's some young, even teenage ears that are listening. This is what it come back with. So I want to read you these things that it came back with, that what evil was going on in Nineveh. And I only put down, I think, five things I summarized, or it summarized basically for me. Here's what it said, and listen closely if you will, because the more that you think about this, I think the more you will get out of this lesson. Nineveh was an ancient economic powerhouse in the world that used its position at the intersection of major trade routes to enrich its elite. That kind of struck me just a little bit because it was like things that I'd been hearing about today. So I said, okay. I looked at the next one and it said the city was condemned for being full of lies. Many of the government's business practices and deceptive alliances were used to strip other nations of their resources. And I thought, well, okay, I understand that. Went a little further. And it said Nineveh's leaders perfected the use of terror and false promises to undermine their enemies' morals and force surrender to their wishes without a fight. They attacked their morals. Maybe had something on them with their morals. Went to the next one. And it said dehumanization was rampant. Historical accounts describe a society so desensitized to cruelty to others that they lost their ability to make basic moral distinctions. Definitely a problem with their morals. Jonah 4 in verse 11 here puts it that this problem was they cannot tell their right hand from their left. That's in Jonah 4 and verse 11. I think that puts it pretty clear. When you can't tell your right hand from your left, you got a problem with your thinking. Number 5. It said that this problem was rampant in Nineveh. Human trafficking. Both for their own twisted pleasures and to supply the workforce with people to work with the ultimate goal of breaking individuals' own identities. I don't know about you, but that was pretty sobering to me. I thought, this is crazy. But it's food for thought. That's all I will say about that. Now, we can make what this came up with, we can make it political, choose a side, talk about a side, talk about the other side, or claim to be in the middle. We can make it political, or even say that the answer that was generated by AI, because I don't know exactly how it works. We can even say that the answer generated by AI was politically biased. We can do that. Or we can simply say we all see the same problems that Nineveh was having back then, today. I don't know about you, but this is some of the statements that I have been making about the whole country, our whole world, and I bet some of you have said the same thing. I can't trust either side anymore. I don't know what to believe anymore. I can't trust what I hear. I can't trust what I see. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to do about it. Well, I'm going to tell you. God here was dealing with Jonah. He sets us to thinking. And he basically tells us, you think about this. And I think it's very important. The point that I want you to understand right now at this point in the lesson is that it is a battle between good and evil. It is a battle between good and evil. It is a battle bigger than you. It is a battle bigger than me. It is a battle bigger than all of this congregation put together. And God knows that. It's a battle between good and evil. God knows that today just like he knew it in Jonah's day. And just like he knew it when he gave Jonah the instructions to go do what he told them when he told him to go do this at Nineveh. Now, at this point, we get back to Jonah. Jonah was a prophet of God. He was sent to deliver a message to the lost city of Nineveh. And we just saw the comparison of the lost city of Nineveh to the lost of this world today. So my question is, are we as Christians, are we being a modern day Jonah? Because that scares me. I don't want to be a modern day Jonah. I want to be a modern day Christian doing the work that Christ has told me to do. So let me just paraphrase the story of Jonah after Mason has read it. Jonah was below, asleep. neglecting God's instructions. We know that. We could have stated that before the lesson ever began. But I want us to look at it in this frame of mind. What about the passengers that were on the ship with Jonah? What about these passengers? Here Jonah had a responsibility. Jonah shirked that responsibility. Were the passengers put in danger, or did they have no problem at all? Jonah, neglecting what the one and only true God told him to do, put the passengers of the ship in perilous harm. They were the ones that were on top side of the ship, fighting the storm that God sent along to wake Jonah up. They were the ones struggling to right the ship. And if you read this closely and you think about what they were teaching, there was all kinds of religious ideas on this ship that the passengers had. If you read about it, each one of them was praying to their God. Each one of them was doing what they thought was right to right this ship. But it wasn't helping, because they didn't have the right communication with the right God. But you have to give them credit that they were at least doing what they had to do. Yes, they were in perilous times, but sometime in their past, they had at least formed an opinion of what God is, and they were consulting their God now, trying to figure out why this was upon them. So we see a lot of people today with wrong religious ideas trying to correct this problem in the name of Jesus. But what about Jonah? The only one that had the true communication with God. He was asleep. So they consulted Jonah. They woke Jonah up and they brought him up and they said, "Who is your God?" Jonah described to them. It only says Jonah told them the story. But we know the story that Jonah told them. He told them the story of his God and how his God had told him to go out and to warn Nineveh against their sins, and he refused to do it. And here he was running from God, trying to get to Tarshish where he thought it was safe, when he should have been doing this over here. And the people looked at him. The other sailors and the occupants of the ship looked at him and they said, "Why are you doing that? Consult your God. Tell your God. Apologize for this thing." Jonah didn't do it at that time. He was still being contrary to God. So what did they said, "What are we going to do, Jonah? What are we going to do?" Jonah said, "Throw me overboard. Throw me overboard, because you see I'm putting you in danger." Now, Jonah didn't say, "Take me back to land at this point. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go over here to Nineveh." He said, "Throw me overboard." You see, we're going to see this over and over. He would rather die than go try to stand up against Nineveh. It's too big of a job. Can't do that. So they threw Jonah overboard. Unbeknown to Jonah, God had prepared a great fish to swallow him up. What does that tell you God was doing? He was killing Jonah. God was destroying Jonah. He was killing Jonah. Jonah wasn't doing what he asked him to do. Finally come to Jonah in the belly of that whale. Did he ask God to send him out to save him? Not really. If you look at it close, Jonah basically said, "God, I'm right where I should be. I've done you wrong. But I have looked around, turned my face back to you. I will go and do what you asked me to do." Now, what you think about Jonah's heart when he was doing that? He said, "God, I'll do what you asked me to do." God spoke to the fish, and the fish spit him out up on dry land. And Jonah, he headed to Nineveh. Now I want you to look at what happened. Let me make sure I've been talking and I've kind of skipped my notes here. Here was Jonah. He was on his way to Nineveh. He had been swallowed. He had been spit out. So he looked at God. on the dry land. And what did God tell him? God said, Jonah, go to Nineveh. Same thing he had told him. Go to Nineveh. Preach to the people. Tell them what I told you to tell me. And Jonah preached to the people. In chapter 3, Jonah preached to the people. What did they do? It says the rulers changed their ways. The rulers changed. They repented. And they changed their ways. And if you could understand the wickedness that was going on, and I encourage you to look at it, the wickedness that was going on in this city, it would be amazing that in 4 chapters, and in 1 chapter here really, that God said they repented and they changed their ways. But you see, the story is not about Nineveh. The story is not about the repentance of Nineveh. If it was, it would stop at chapter 3, because that's at the end of chapter 3. That's where it tells that the people repented and started obeying God again. But it keeps going. Because the story is not about Nineveh, it's about Jonah. The story is about Jonah. Well, you see, Jonah was so pleased with the repentance of these people. He was so pleased of the lesson that he had learned there while he was in the belly of the whale. He was so pleased with God being all-knowing and making the right decision. And he was so pleased with the wicked people of Nineveh repenting and turning to God. No, I'm making all that up. Jonah continued to protest. He wasn't pleased at all. He wasn't happy about Nineveh. He wasn't happy that they turned their ways. He wasn't pleased. He hadn't really learned his lesson from being in the belly of the whale. At least 3 times Jonah told God, just kill me. Just kill me. I would rather be dead than go face these people of Nineveh. I would rather be dead than to see these people turn away from their ways, to think that one of these days I could possibly be rubbing some kind of shoulder with people who have these problems in the past while here on earth. I don't want to be amongst these people ever. You see, Jonah basically said, God, I wish the quickest way you could get them to hell, you would speed it up. I wish they would burn. Have we become that complacent today? That we look at the wickedness of this world and our compassion is completely gone? Jonah questioned God. You know what he told God? I think it's there in chapter 3. As you read it, he told God, you're too good. God, here's your problem, you see. You're too good. You're too good for your own good. You are caring about these people when all they have done is this, and this, and look how many people they've influenced. All you care about is me teaching them. And Jonah did that till the very end. Jonah went outside the city and he sat down, and it was on a hot day, boy. It was a hot day, and God even got up a hot wind. I don't know if you know how it is when it's on a hot day and even the wind is hot. That's the way it was. So God tried to show Jonah something. He had overnight, he had a mature gourd tree grow up. Next morning came and it was shading Jonah. It's the only time in the whole 4 chapters that it says Jonah was happy. Of all the things that went on, the storm ceasing for the boat and saving the people on the boat, Jonah being spit out of the belly of the whale, Jonah speaking to the people and getting them to repent, the only time he was happy was sitting in the shade of the gourd. Is that us? Are we sitting in the shade of our gourd, our nice houses, our nice buildings, all the comforts that we have that even a generation ago didn't have? And so we're pleased to be here with this gourd. Lord, thank you for the gourd. What did God do? Well, this wind, it withered the gourd. The gourd died. The gourd didn't shade Jonah anymore, and he was sorry he lost the gourd. Man, I miss my gourd. God took the gourd from me. You see, Jonah's thinking, was it sure is comfortable here under this gourd. And I tell you, Jonah, I think, enjoyed the gourd outside the city because he was going to sit there and he was going to watch this city fail. He was going to watch these people who said that we'll do better and we'll do right by God. He was going to watch them turn away from it again so that when they failed again and God decided, well, now I'm going to destroy them. See, I told you, God. I told you. Sometimes we can become that hard-hearted against another group of people other than us and think God's teaching won't help them. Whether it's one person out here that we know, whether it's a group of people, or whether it's half of the country. Nothing can change them. What did God tell us in 2 Timothy 4 and verse 2? He told us to go preach the Word. And he said, now guys, I want you to go preach the Word when it's comfortable for you. Be cautious where you go. No, he said, go preach the Word in season and out of season. No matter what's going on, you preach the Word. I'll take care of the rest. You preach the Word. Oh no, I'm going to be bullheaded like old Jonah. Not me, Lord. I'm not taking every opportunity I can to stick your word in. I'm not taking every opportunity I can to teach something from the Bible from this. What good is it going to do anyway? That was Jonah's attitude. What good is it going to do anyway? One man, one voice going into this town that's doing all of this wickedness to repeat your words and boom, something happens. It ain't going to happen, Lord. It simply ain't going to happen. Well, God showed Jonah, you sit here under this shade tree and watch. And it happened. The people at that time turned away from what they were doing. What a reviving. What a reviving of the people. But the book ain't about the people. It's about Jonah. And it's about us today, the disciples of God, just like Jonah, who are told, you go preach to Nineveh. You go tell Nineveh what they're doing. And don't tell me we don't get the opportunity to tell people that are thinking wrong. We're leaving all these other people out here like the men on the ship who were trying to do the right thing, but they didn't have the direct line with God like a true Christian has, who has the truth. We just let them handle it. Y'all fight it. Yeah, I know the waves are coming over the bow. I know the ship is going down. I don't care. Let this ship sink. Let her sink. Jonah, you better wake up. You see, I gave you something to do. And you better get it done. And Jonah says, but God, it sure is comfortable here under this gourd. Are we thankful for the gourd? Or are we thankful for God? Do we want to stay under the gourd? Or do we want to follow God? That's the question that we must ask ourselves. God showed Jonah to obey my voice. Paraphrasing, but God told Jonah, I made you. I made all these people at Nineveh. And I love you all. There's not two sides to this when it comes to my love. There's a good and there's an evil. And your job is to educate the evil and try to bring them back to good. That is your job. Don't get so obsessed with the gourd. I can give you a gourd or I can take it away. I can give you air conditioning and heat in the winter and a car to drive and a house to live in, and I can take it away. You've got to follow what I'm telling you to do. You see, are we taking every opportunity that we have to teach every person? No matter the wickedness, no matter the consequences. Simply doing it because that's what God told us to do. You see, I stated from the beginning that this lesson was food for thought. Why did I say that? Why would I say that this lesson is food for thought instead of giving you a conclusion written in the Bible that God says this is what you are to do when you come up against Nineveh? Because God didn't give the answer. Do you realize God ended the book of Jonah with a question? He ended it with a question. Look what he said. Starting in chapter 4, all the way down to verse 11, God asks the question, "And should not I spare Nineveh, that great city, wherein are more than 60,000 persons that cannot discern between their right hand and their left hand, and also many cattle?" I don't know about you, but when has God ever ended a conversation with a question? That question was not only for Jonah. He don't tell us what happened to Jonah. He leaves Jonah right where he was because you know what? God ends it with us. We are the Jonah. And he says, should I not have spared Nineveh? What's he saying? He's saying, Jonah, think about it. He's saying, Scott, Jake, Chuck, Dwayne, think about it. Think about what you're seeing around you today, and it was completely shocking how Nineveh reminded me of the world we live in today. You talk about things don't ever change. Buddy, they don't. We see so-called Christians out here fighting the battle. Maybe they're doing the best they can with what they got. I know that their God is not the God that can win the battle. But here we are, Jonah, with the true God sitting under the gourd, waiting for an opportunity to say, God, I told you so. These are wicked people that will never change. And they're friends, and they're family, and acquaintances of ours. And it's got to start somewhere. And where did God say start? With you. Go each and every one of you into the world and preach the gospel. That's what we got to do. And you know what? We might be shocked that it could save an entire country and world with the Word of God. But we must examine our hearts. God does not give us the conclusion of Jonah's story. He simply sums it up with a question. Should I have not saved Nineveh or even tried? And that's what I want you to leave here with today, is think about the things that we see today and think, should I not try to say anything? Do we have our minds made up about the souls of the lost? Do we classify big and little sins? Do we determine the easy, the hard, and the impossible converts in our mind? I'll repeat again, Jonah was being killed by God in the belly of the fish. He prayed, and he didn't pray for his salvation. He'd just soon die. But he did say, I will do what you told me to do. And God having him delivered out of it. And I love the way that when he changed his mind, what he stated. He said, you know what? Salvation belongs to the Lord. Salvation belongs. It is not our job to change the hearts of the people. It's just our job to tell them what God said. God will take care of the rest. It's not our job to figure out and make up in our minds what's good, bad, and the ugly. It's all been done before. You're not going to hear of anything, believe me, that is so supposedly going on today that hadn't gone on before. And you're not going to you shouldn't bury your head and think that didn't go on. It's happened before. Again and again and again. You see, it was Jonah's heart that needed work, not his understanding. He knew he had the only true God, but his heart had to be conditioned. What will we do? Will we take the opportunity to teach? God says, think about it. Think about it. And that's how I want to leave you this morning. If there's anything that we can do to help you in any way to see the clarity of what God tells us to do in the Bible, whether it is salvation, whether it is a relationship you have here on earth, whatever it may be, let us know what we can help you with, and we'll do our very best as we stand and as we sing.